Okay, I think we're live. Can you hear us and see us well, guys? In the chat. Okay, seems like it's coming. Okay. How are you doing, Mary, Sarah? Doing good?
Oh, great. Yeah,
Great.
I'm excited for this.
Thanks
Yeah, I
for
think it's
having
going to be
us
an
here.
amazing session. Cool. Before we jump into the session, a few practical things. So you saw that you have a chat on the right-hand side. Please, if you have a question, ask here. It can be a practical question like, I can't hear you, whatever. We have a team of moderators to help you. It can also be a question for us because at the end of the session, we're going to have a Q&A. So please ask a question. There is no dumb question. So please ask whatever you want. And also vote for the question that you like, the one that you think are relevant, so we can prioritize because maybe we're not going to have the time to answer each and every question. So please use the chat. I think it's going to be dynamic. We want this to be dynamic. So let's use the chat to do that. Please be respectful to us, but also to the others within the chat. I know it's important, but I'm sure everything is going to go well. Maybe before we start, we will just start sharing the slides. We're going to have a few things here. So as an introduction, and then I will let Sarah and Mary introduce herself, but I'm sure you all know Mary and Sarah. They're quite well known. I'm the one that nobody knows about. Mary and Sarah, you are influencers in this world. So maybe as an introduction, I think we all do a quite stressful job as SEO expert, SEO specialist, search specialist, whatever, because what we do is changing so fast all the time. It's always been like that, but I think it's even more true in the last few years, months maybe. Of course, with everything going on Google side, but also on AI, of course, because that's like a huge wave. And so we need to be able to understand what's going on. And so that's the point of today. So good news, we are in the right place. And then why are we relevant on those topics? Mara, Sarah, do you want to say a word about yourselves?
Go ahead, Sarah, you go first.
Are you sure? I think I'm you're way smarter and experienced. So I'll take a back seat. I'll go second.
Don't be
All
shy,
right.
Sarah.
So-
You're the one.
So my name's Marie Haynes, and many years ago I was a veterinarian, which is, why is a veterinarian talking to you guys about AI and SEO? I just got interested in understanding how Google works, and so I started collecting information and just learning about Google's algorithms, and it turned into a consulting thing. I had an agency for several years, and in the last couple of years, it's been just me, and I've been focusing really on understanding AI. The moment I saw ChatGPT, actually Playground, OpenAI Playground, I knew that the whole world was changing. And so today what I do is I do consulting, and I run my community called the Search Bar, where we try to figure out what's happening with the world and how not only in search, but in life, we can get an advantage by being ahead of what's happening with AI.
Thanks for being here, Mary. And I was not aware that you were a veterinarian, so
Yeah,
cool.
Weird career path, right?
Yeah, that's cool. Sarah, a word about yourself.
I'm Sarah. I've been doing SEO for 10 years. I worked both agency side and client side. I worked in different industries: insurance, finance, SaaS, e-commerce. I also train Python, and I'm super happy to be here. And I just want to say I'm super happy to be here with Mary. I'm actually taking notes as she speaks. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Mary. A word about myself. So my name is Corentin. So I'm the head of international development at SMG. I lived in a couple of places, London first, then Montreal, so in Canada, then in France. So I manage our global clients. So my main area of expertise are multi-market SEO and how you handle that. It's been about 10 years, me too, a bit more than that. Last time I checked, it was a bit more than 1,000 different websites on which I worked. So a lots of good things, a lot of error. So of course, I will try to share that expertise, at least that knowledge that I have with you guys. I think that's the point. But I think now is the right time to answer a few questions. And we will start with the big one. How can businesses effectively integrate AI-driven content strategy to enhance content performance and search rankings in 2025? Who want to start? So many things to say here.
I mean, really, we could do the whole hour talking about this one question,
Yeah.
right? I think that when AI first started being used in search, all that we saw was just people cheaply writing content, without any thought into it. And I don't know if you saw that the quality rater guidelines just updated this week. I'm currently working on a big presentation on this because it says all throughout there's new additions that they made about originality and how we don't want to just be paraphrasing what other people said. And I actually find that the way I use AI in my content creation, I can't imagine creating content today without the help of Gemini and ChatGPT. And so what I do when I'm writing something is I use AI to help me generate topic ideas, to help me understand. I'll say, what is the main intent of somebody who would read this article? And what are 3 micro intents they would have? And then I'm sure that I cover all of those things. So AI can be something that can help us understand user intent, can help us. I use it to make my writing more concise because, as you can tell, I'm very wordy. And so I'll say, I wrote all this. Does it make sense? Can you make it shorter for me? And I think that the way I use AI in my content strategies is like I have a really smart assistant with me. I'm not going to rely on my assistant to write everything for me, but I can get great ideas from my assistant, and I can have corrections, and I can have, just a lot of things to think on. So, and I think we've only just scratched the surface on what we can create with AI.
Yeah. If I can
I
add.
agree with.
Yeah, go for it, Sarah. Yeah, I think
I
lots
have
of things
the
need to be
tendency to
said
jump
first, so
in
go
weird
for it.
times. Okay, so I agree with Narian. I'm really impressed with all the things she mentioned. In SEO, we work on different industries a lot, and maybe sometimes it's a product or a service we're not familiar with. And definitely using AI would help us create a customer persona and understand more about our customer. And that would be actually helpful in even just researching for the topics, because sometimes we don't know what type of areas to look into that are related to the main topic. We have the main keywords, yes, but what else is there?
Yeah.
And then the second thing, other than writing the content itself, there are 2 sides to this, like the automating side, where we automate things like keyword clustering, for example, or analyzing the top 100 results or top 10, even whatever, in SERPs, title tags, and the content using LLMs and some automation with Python. And maybe even doing automated research to find a list of relevant facts for a specific topic. All of these things make our work more efficient and definitely helps us speed up whatever we're doing, more accuracy, and do things that would take us way long time to do ourselves usually, or maybe we don't do it at all. And then there is also the part where we automate what we're delivering to the client. So, for example, meta description. I know it's not important right now, but things like that, or even programmatic SEO. Like in the past, I don't know, 7 years ago or so, or 8 maybe, that sort of thing. If you want to create tons of pages, the idea that you want to have quickly, if you want to create 1,000 pages quickly, programmatically, templated pages, the idea that you can have unique content for each page is very challenging. Right now, that's not the case with the help of LLMs as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you have here, Sarah. I think quantity is not a differentiator anymore. And I think that's like a key change, a major one. Because when I started doing SEO about 10 years ago, as mentioned, when you created PBNs for the old ones, Murray is smiling. It was all about how can I be as efficient as possible, like creating thousands of pages, hundreds of websites, etc. It was a bit of a black hat thing to do. Don't do that. But good SEOs were doing that kind of things. Now, if you do that, like, it does not make any sense. And if you do that during like for content strategy, and you create 1,000 page, everybody can do it. You can push a button on ChatGPT and it's done. So the differentiator is not quantity, it's quality. And how can we use AI to do that? I think, Sarah, you mentioned that saving time is maybe the one first thing that comes to mind when you think about AI. I think it's also about finding new opportunities. Marie, you mentioned that it's your assistant, so it's kind of a brainstorming tool. I also think it's a very good thing to use when you want to do some analysis. Like as digital marketers, we should always be all about the competition. What's going on? What's happening? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses, etc. But to do that, either you're a huge fan of Excel or CSV files. I'm not. Or you can use ChatGPT or whatever, an AI solution, to do those as an analysis for you. And then your job as a human person, intelligent person, is to make choices because you have the data. And so we can finally spend time on taking decision and not retrieve huge amount of data, make sure that the data is relevant, that we have no errors, etc. I think that's the major change. And one last thing about how can a business, a company, an organization can be efficient using AI is to think that AI should not be only for specialists. I think that's a major mistake. Like in teams, we often see, okay, I'm the AI manager and I will be in charge of the project. Nonsense. If you're an AI manager, you know how to do that. It should be the content managers, the product managers, it should be those people using AI all day long. Of course, it needs a bit of training, but Marie, sorry, you're here for that. I am here for that. So yeah, I think that's how to use it efficiently.
I want to add just one more thing, because when it comes to creating content, one of the most helpful things I've found is Notebook LM. I don't know if you guys have played much with Notebook LM, but you can take, again, a quality rater guidelines. You put the entire rater guidelines into Notebook LM, and I also put in a bunch of notes that I've made and things, and it will help you. I don't exactly use all of the writing, but it'll pull out the interesting things. And you could put in a new research paper. So let's say, because Google doesn't need the same stuff paraphrased over and over again. We tend to do that in content, right? We're like, let's write the same as everybody else, but try to make it just a little bit better. And if you can take new research and say to Notebook LM, can you pick out the 3 most interesting things about this and write it in layman's terms? And you can write like fairly good content by doing that. So yeah, and then Notebook LM as well, you can put all of your company's documentation in it, so that you can put things like your writing style, your brand guidelines, things like that. It's amazing what an assistant it is.
Yeah. I don't want to be salesy, so I will not talk too much about SEMG. Yet on that part, I think it's really important to have in mind that to have a performant content as a business, you need to have 3 things. First, you need that piece of content to be visible, so search optimized. Second thing, you need that piece of content to be unique, and we're going to talk about EAT. That's one major thing, so that's your brand, who you are, and you need that content to be interesting. And so if you don't have those 3, it can be generated by a human, by whatever, you will have a problem at the end of the day. So basically, you need to integrate those 3 things. And so that's the brand voice. So now we integrate brand voice. Now we integrate knowledge base. And so that's the kind of thing that you want to have. You can do it with a tool like ours, but you can do it on your own, as Mary mentioned. And it's basically what you need to do if you want to be performant. I think we need to switch to the second one. Otherwise, we're going to spend an hour on the same question. With Google's increasing emphasis on EAT, what are the best practices for demonstrating these qualities in both human and AI-generated content? I think first we need to define what is EAT. And Mary, I think you're one of the best person in the world to define what it is.
Sure. So I think most people know what it stands for, but just in case, we're experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And it's something that is all throughout Google's quality raters guidelines, which The guidelines are not Google's algorithm, but they represent what they're trying to get the algorithms to do. And there was a time, if you were into EAT, because they added the experience recently, if you were into EAT in late 2017, early 2018, you could almost manipulate EAT by, getting your reputation all around, making social profiles, even author bios, like had some contribution to EAT. Today, Today, it's not something that you can really fake. The T is trustworthiness, Rachel. So EAT, my understanding of it is it's like the concept the world holds of you, the online world. So you can find out, you can learn a lot about your EAT by asking language models. If the language model knows you. If I go to ChatGPT, now language models tend to be like very complimentary. I'll say, do you know who Marie Haynes is? At first, when I first did it, it didn't know me at all. And I was like, I was embarrassed. And then I was like, do you know Marie Haynes, the SEO? And it said, oh, Marie Haynes, the SEO. She's known for understanding Google algorithms for blah, blah, blah. How did ChatGPT know that? It's from the entirety of the information that's written on the web. It's from, I've been on podcasts like this. It's from being quoted in places like Search Engine Land, Search Engine Roundtable. So EEAT is primarily about your reputation. It's about what other people say about you. Now, how do you demonstrate that on your website? It's also about whether or not you are known for your topics. And so if you write information that you become the go-to source, which is really hard to do, you need to be focusing on writing things where people want to reference it, not about the page rank with links, but that people are like, oh, you want to know about this topic? This person has a great article on it. That's a part of EEAT. So in terms of AI generated content, it's hard to just, you can't, again, really fake EEAT, but you can use it to help verify accuracy. So if I'm writing something about some machine learning thing that, I know a little bit about, but maybe I don't know lots about it, I want to be sure that I'm accurate, and I can ask AI do I have anything wrong in here? Because that can contribute to whether it's trustworthy or not. And so I think when it comes to being represented, as more people do searches with ChatGPT or with Gemini, I know Gemini doesn't get a lot of attention, but trust me, it will be the way that people get their information in the future. You almost always see that it is brands that are known, that it is people who are known as a go-to source. And so the biggest advice that I can give when it comes to building your EEAT, because you can build it, is to create a reputation for your topics. And then I'll give one other tip, and then I'll stop and let you guys talk, is that language models tend to like to use lists. If you ask ChatGPT for something like for the best SEO experts, for the best whatever, it will often pull from a list. And so that's kind of one little trick that people can use, is if you can get into those lists, especially if it's ranking on Bing, because that's what ChatGPT pulls from, that can help whether or not you're recommended in those tools.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mary. Sarah, you mentioned that you worked in a couple of industries, in many industries. Do you have like examples on how to build a good EEAT profile?
I think, following up with what Marie said, I agree with her. But what I want to say is how I see EEAT now. It's very, like you can look at it as if it's synonym to brand in a way, right? For a person, right? So building a strong brand online, as Marie said, and a good reputation online, having trustworthy sources talking about you or linking to you, your website or whatever, is definitely very helpful for yourself to establish yourself as a brand, as a person, even as a person, right? Not just a company, as a brand. So that part is very important, because I feel everything is just intertwined one way or the other. Authority, brand, EEAT, they're very connected. And then the second thing, I think it's important that content has to demonstrate your experience and expertise, right? And that's why when I pass a content brief to a copywriter, I don't like to restrict them. Sometimes content briefs are too in-depth, you are, controlling too much, or we are micromanaging too much what they need to do, what they write. And writing is a creative art, or a creative type of work in nature. And I want the copywriter to, pour down their experience or expertise or their thoughts. And then, yes, SEO should be there in specific areas. But that is a reflection of EEAT, in my opinion, versus just skyscraper and, more is more, just pumping things out. And I don't see, like, if we look at Google's quality guidelines and quality raters guidelines, so AI content is not by definition spammy or by definition against the guidelines. However, I don't see how a purely 100% AI generated content can have EEAT unless it's reviewed by a human, for example. There has to be some human contribution, and the more the better. Google does take into account also the effort put into the content, which is very interesting to look at, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel a lot of things, the way we look at EAT, as Marie said in the past, was author bio, few things here and there. Right now, it's not just this, or maybe that's not what's really important, right?
Cool. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's not even funny. I think we all agree. So there is no debate here. If I may add a few things, I think AI. So I work with a lot of clients. I meet with a lot of different companies with different maturity levels, etc. And I've been asked a lot, isn't it like dangerous to work with AI, or will it be considered as spam, or those kind of things? And I think one thing that we all need to have in mind is AI is a tool. It's not the end goal. Like, if you type your content piece with a keyboard or with a voice recorder or with whatever you want, we don't care. It's a tool. But the end goal is to create value to your audience. So I would say the only thing that you need to have in mind is my piece of content, is what I have on my website, is relevant? Do I create value as a brand? If the answer is no, even from an SEO standpoint, pointless. So I think if I have one advice, because lots of things have been said, and I totally agree again, it's one thing: do I create value? If yes, you will get results.
I think one way also to look at this is store-bought something, and something that's made, in a luxury brand or something. So, or even let's look at an example at a grocery store. So, for example, pizza in a grocery store, the frozen ones, okay, they're okay, they're mass produced and they're okay. But if you go to a fancy Italian pizza restaurant with an Italian chef, it's definitely a different experience. And that's the difference between AI generated content, which is just this frozen pizza, and a good copywriter. The better the copywriter is, it's like the better the chef is, right? And the better experience they have, and how much they can, create something way better. So I feel this analogy would help just explain why AI generated content, while it is content, it's not just that good.
Okay, thanks, Sarah, because on that we are not agree. Because I think so. You're comparing like a best-in-class human to a poorly generated AI content.
I think we agreed we're not gonna disagree before the my understanding, right, Marie? Like we said, I have weapons here. Like, we're not gonna disagree, but okay, I'll allow it.
Because if you have like a poorly human-generated content and an AI-generated content, taking into account your brand, your compliance, an SEO brief, everything to have a quality content, but used and produced with an AI. Honestly, I prefer to read an article written by an AI that creates value because I'm learning new things, than something that has been written by a human, but because that person needs to create 10 pieces of content per day, the quality of the content is poor. So in my opinion, and from what we see in terms of performance with our 500 clients, it's the quality that matters, not depending on is it human or AI. Of course, you can't push a button and have a quality AI generated content. Not going to happen. Yet, you can have an AI generated content with quality if you take into account a few things. But I'm sure you will agree.
Okay. Okay, I think here's the thing. I think AI, specifically when it comes to content creation, has raised the bar a lot to what is the minimum acceptable level of quality. Mediocre, and I'm not sure if there's a better word to describe it, but mediocre copywriting, at least that's one thing we can confidently say it's dead, and it's really dead. It's not going to come back from the dead. That's gone. Like, why would you hire someone who's not a good copywriter if you can get this better quality with AI? So that's that. And I think what we're going to be looking for in the future is subject matter experts specifically, right? Maybe. So human generated content is going to be even more expensive to create, but yeah.
Something else to consider is the role of user satisfaction. And we've talked a lot this year since the API files leaked or were found about how user click signals are in the algorithm. And if anybody who is watching this has not read Pandu Nayak's testimony from the DOJ versus Google trial, I'll put a link in the chat when I'm done babbling here. It talks extensively about the role of trying to understand what users are satisfied with, whether that's clicks. And I mean, this is a whole other discussion for another day. But what I'm trying to say is that the other day I read an article and I thought, yeah, this is good. It's okay. I got to the bottom and it said, it clarified that it was AI written, which is, we can talk about that too. Should you have AI as an author on your author bio? That's, I don't know if you want to go into that, but I felt a little cheated because I thought I was reading from the author. It was his website, and I thought I was reading from him. And so I think it's important. Some of the first stuff, when ChatGPT first came out, I rewrote all of my intro paragraphs. And now when I look back at them, it's embarrassing. They're all like, let's delve into the fascinating landscape of, like, it just sounds like it's AI. So I think that if we're using AI to write things, it's important that we're clear with our audience, that we look at user engagement signals. So it would be interesting, if you have some AI written content and you have some that is human written, to look at the engagement metrics, look at GA4 and see, are people scrolling? Are people reading the whole thing? And if people enjoy the AI content just as much, I do think some AI generated content is great. I published my first completely AI generated article this week. It was summarizing a Google research paper because it did it way better than I could. And it's gotten a lot of views and people seem to like it. I did also clarify at the bottom that this was the first article that I didn't write, that my assistant, I think it was Notebook LM, did that. So I think just keeping our users happy should be our number one metric.
Yeah, thanks. I think we could spend hours talking about that, but we need to move on. So
I have two things I want to say. I'm sorry. I'm going to say them quickly.
Go for it.
Okay. Again, following up on what Marie said, I agree with her. I think tools as well, like Clarity, Microsoft Clarity, for example, would be very helpful to see how users engage on the page, right? We need to include that part as part of what we do. That should be not something weird you're asking for. And then the second part is, we need a change in mindset. That I worked with people who, I had a manager one time who would consider using ChatGPT as cheating. And I was like, this is like using a calculator, right? Like, you should be, imagine if I want to do data analysis and I do it on paper today for SEO. That's ridiculous, right? So you use the tools, but you use them the right way. As we discussed, human part, like the human component in content is definitely going to be important, and it's still important. I don't see a change in that. It's just we need to have a different mindset a bit towards AI generated content. But yeah, that's it. I'm not going to say anything more.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question is, in the context of AI advancements like Google Gemini, GPT, how should content professionals adapt their approach to maintain and improve search visibility? I think we tackled that a little bit, but maybe you have like practical tips, things like that needs to be done. Let's imagine that we have 93 people SEO specialists, digital managers, and they need to put things in the planning, what should it be doing?
Well, I think we should all be paying attention to how much traffic comes from these tools. For my clients, I have a monthly, I have a report or an exploration set up in GA4 and it's not that difficult to do. You just simply choose traffic that's referred from ChatGPT.com or Gemini. If somebody wants help with that, I can find you references on how to set that up. And it's interesting to see that, like, for a lot of my clients, maybe less than 1% of their search traffic comes from these tools, but it's increasing every month. And the last one where I take that data and then I put it into ChatGPT and I say, make a line graph out of this. And one of them is like exponential, that they went from like 2 visits a month to 4 visits, and then 17 visits, and then 40 visits. And if you extrapolate that, more and more people are going to be ending up using these tools. I think also the entirety of search will change. I don't know how many of you have heard of Project Astra, which is Google's extended reality that will be in glasses, much better than the old Google Glass because now it has AI behind it. And I believe that this is just how people will search with images. You'll be able to just look at something and search, like, what's wrong with my plant. I've been using a version of it that you can get in AI Studio, Google's AI Studio, and like those are different searches. So I don't have the answer on how we adapt to that, but I think that everyone who's in SEO should at least be paying attention to how your brand is represented in these tools. One of the things I like to do is I like to go to Gemini and ChatGPT and say, who do you recommend for this? And it's my client that I'm working on, that particular topic. And if the tool doesn't recommend my client, I'll ask why. Now, we have to know that it won't know. Like, sometimes it's summarizing its answer from just information off the internet, and it'll often tell you some, ad structured data, which is probably not something that like gets you into visibility. But you can get little hints as to like, okay, well, maybe they're not as well known. And then you can ask, how can they get more known? And have a conversation with the LLM about how to improve your visibility in the LLM.
Yeah. Thank you for that. If I give you some practical tips, and I will always start with the first one, is always have a value-driven approach when it comes to content. Again, if you can't answer the question, why should I publish this specific content on my website from an audience standpoint, you should not be publishing it at all. So that's number one. Number two is, as search becomes more and more conversational, don't aim only for big, short tail keywords. Let's say you're in the car insurance, don't always go for car insurance quotes, because it's so competitive. And people, of course, are looking for that, but also are looking for, why should I buy or purchase or whatever a car insurance quote living in Alabama and when it's snowing, whatever. People will have those kind of questions. So you need to be visible on those. So it means that you need to have more questions. You need to have more Q&As. You need to have more. You need to go for long tail keywords and not only the biggest one. It's not PPC here. You're not betting on keywords. You are trying to be visible on the topics on which you are relevant. I think that's the mindset that you need to have. So that's number 2. Number 3 and 4 are a bit technical, but implement those schema markup. Often it's not done. Those how-to, those reviews, those products markup are really important because it helps a bot to understand what you're doing, basically. And also, that's number 4. I would say you can help bots to find you. So those are technical implementation. We, as content expert, we can say that's not my job, but it is, because your job is to get your content pieces visible to your audience. And maybe you will need to talk and to work with your technical team. It can be developers, it can be technical SEO people, it can be whatever you want. But you need to have, you need your website to be fast, you need your website to be secure, you need those basics to be here. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want when it comes to relevancy of your content. If you don't have those basics in place, not a chance you will rank on competitive keyword. And I will say the bonus, because I said it quite 4, but actually it's 5, work on a brand. Often SEO people are always like, no, I don't care about branded keyword. Yes, you do. Because of course that's traffic. And at the end of the day, what matters is the revenue coming from your website. Maybe you have goals on non-branded conversion and non-branded revenue. Yet at the end of the day, for the company, all we care about is the bottom line. So think about that, and it will help the brand, the organic search, because Marie and Sarah mentioned that before. If your reputation is good, you're gonna get better results. You're gonna get better conversion, because when someone will say, "What's the best insurance in the US or in Canada?" and you hear, of course, your conversion rate will skyrocket. So yeah, I would say 5 tips. And Sarah, do you want to finish on this question?
Yeah, I have something. It will sound irrelevant, but I think it is. I'm sorry. So, because we're talking about pitfalls in data analysis for SEO using those tools. And I think here's the thing. First of all, there's privacy concerns when it comes to ChatGPT, right? The one that's the most secure LLM, or the one that's known for better security, is Copilot Enterprise. So that's something to take into account, the type of data we're sharing with ChatGPT and other LLMs in general. Then the second thing I want to talk about is sometimes we upload the data, we ask ChatGPT for a data task, and it will give an output. And that problem with the LLMs is they're very tricky. The output can look very logical and right, but if you dig deeper, you'll find there's something not correct about it. Sometimes the logic that this output was created is not what you intended. And I think what I like to do sometimes, specifically if this is a task that's going to be repeatable, I like to give it an input for an output. I know how this will look like, how this calculation should be, right? To compare, just to make sure, okay, I'm like, it got the calculation right. The logic is there and it's correct. So spot checking, double checking is definitely highly recommended when you're doing data analysis with LLMs.
Thank you for that. Let's move on. Okay, we're going to talk about content audits. How can businesses conduct comprehensive content audit to identify and address areas for improvements, ensuring their content remains competitive and relevant? Again, so many things to be said here. Sarah, you want to go first? Go for it.
Because this pops something that I've been doing to all my clients. I think looking at the first place to start, or one of the first places, is a brand audit. Understand how our brand looks online, right? And ask LLMs questions like Marie suggested, this sort of thing. One of the things I found very interesting is that you want your website to tell the story. You don't want someone else or third-party tools to tell the story. You don't want them to control that. And I've seen sometimes you type a brand name in search and you get PAA questions answered. The answers are pulled from third-party websites, not from the brand website, right? And this is problematic because someone else is talking about your brand, right?
Even worse when it's credit.
Right? Is this brand legit? Is this brand good? Stuff. This is very, very important. Where is this product made? Hey guys, this should be on your website. Why does someone else have control of this narrative? So this is something, start there. And brand is very important. It's important for EAT, but it's also I like how Rand Fishkin described it. It's the currency for LLMs. If search is about keywords, brand name is our currency for LLMs and brand mentions. So definitely start there. I'll slow down a bit. Back to Marie, because
it was really cool.
And then I can come back later.
I love how passionate you are about it. There's not a lot of people that are passionate about content audits. It's fantastic.
I am too.
And that's great. Like, I think the group of people that are in this room are kind of geeky people, no offense, but there's very few in the world that get like excited about this kind of thing. In terms of a content audit, I'm going to say one mistake that I think people make is going back and deleting old blog posts because they currently don't get any attention. If they did get attention when they were first written, then they're good. You don't need to take them off your site, because those contribute to your overall body of the wealth of knowledge that you've put on the web. So what I would recommend, as you go through content, I'd really look at user engagement signals. Again, look in GA4 and see at any time where users engaging with this. And I'm never a fan of chopping out content because of a particular metric. I always want to have a human in the loop, but I often do kind of make some self-made metrics where I'm like, okay, anything that's under a particular number of seconds of average duration. I'll tell you an interesting it's a very small study that I did. I looked at a number of sites that did well after a core update, and I was trying to see what user engagement metrics I could correlate with the pages that did well. And it turns out that in each of these cases, I think there were only 3 though, so I don't have enough to publish it, but in each of these cases, the average session duration was consistently tied to content that improved in keyword rankings during a core update. Now, does that mean that Google looks at average session duration? No. What they're looking for is all of the, they have, with the March core update last year, they said that they brought in a multitude of new signals to the systems. And so they're looking at a variety of things to try and predict whether content is going to be helpful to people. And so it kind of makes sense that if people spend more time on your content, in most cases, that makes it more helpful. So I would really be looking for things that made what content are people engaging with, and can you make more of that type? What content just fell flat, maybe, and figure out why. Like maybe it's not in line with your main topics. I see a lot of people do this. You're not going to get penalized if all of a sudden you write a few blog posts on a topic that's not related to your business. But if you are consistently doing that, then it kind of dilutes what you're known for. So focus on your main topic. And then the one last thing, I mean, content audit, again, we could go on for the whole hour on what we could do here, but one super important thing is freshness. So last year, it might have been the year before, when Google added a bit of information to their documentation on creating helpful content, they added a line that said, are you something like, are you updating the date to try to make it look fresh when it really isn't? And I was like, why would they add that? They would only add that if freshness like really matters. And there's a patent, again, I'll find it and put it in the chat, but there's a patent that talks about freshness-based ranking. And Google has systems that determine how likely it is that the user is going to want fresh content, and then give a boost to content that is fresh. And so what I found with a lot of sites is that if you just go in and update your pages, not just with the date, but you actually add something about like a new study that was done this year, or, our team spent half of 2024 studying this, and made it so that it was more up to date, then that's something that can give you a big boost.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Loved it. A few ideas come to mind when you say that. You started with a mistake, so I will do the same. The one mistake that I see the most with our client before they become a client is that they conduct content audit for new content only, and they totally forget about what they already have on the website, existing content. And you need to see your website as a bank account. I think you always need to talk about money, otherwise nobody understands, and even more with your management, and even more with the board of the company. So you need to talk about dollars, otherwise nonsense to those guys. So you need to see that as a bank account. And when you have existing pages and you delete a page, it's money that you just on the trash, and that's it. It's not possible to do that. Maybe the intent, maybe the competitive landscape has changed, whatever, but you need to repurpose those content pieces. So first, it's not only about new content and content gaps and those kind of things, but it's also about identifying the best opportunities on existing content. Of course, when you have a huge website, like thousands, millions of pages, You can't rewrite everything. Not possible. You don't have the time to do it. Maybe with AI you could, but not a good thing to do. I would not recommend to repurpose everything. Yet maybe you have 5, 10, 15% of the pages that needs to be repurposed because, again, the competition has changed, Google has changed, intent has changed, whatever. And so it's about identifying those best ones. So I would say that's the first thing that you should have in mind when you do a content audit. Where should I start? And the second thing is talk about, Marie mentioned freshness. I will relate that notion to seasonality. Most businesses have seasonality in the business. And so it's nonsense, again, to me, not to refresh a piece of content based on the season you're in. I take my example, car insurance again. When you're in the middle of the winter in Montreal or in Quebec, and you talk about car insurance, you need to talk about the snow, because the reason why you insure your car is different than during the summer. So you need to make some tweaks. You need to modify that, again, to be relevant to what's going on for your audience. So yeah, again, it's logic, but often not done. And also one good thing with existing content, I love existing content, is you have less inertia to get results. Because that page already exists, you already have backlinks, you already get traffic, it's already in the index. All of that is good news to us. So just so you know, on average, we conduct a huge study on that part based on 500,000 pages. And when you optimize an existing page, on average, to get results, it's about a month. For a new piece of content, it's between 6 and 9 months. So if you want to get results fast, and of course your management and yourself want to get results fast because you're going to get paid for it, use those existing content of yours. Okay.
I had one quick tip. If you're trying to figure out how to freshen up an article, ask an LLM. My favorite right now is the new Gemini thinking model that you can use in Google AI Studio for free. And just give it, copy and paste your whole article. Say, I'm looking for ways to make this more up-to-date and more fresh. Can you find me research or suggest other ideas? And it's amazing how it comes back with interesting things.
Yeah. And if you want to take that into account, plus make sure that you will get results, you can use a tool that begins with an S and finish with an I. That's the kind of thing that we do. But I said I was not going to be salesy today. Next question is, in a world increasingly dominated by conversational AI and voice search, what are the most effective ways to search optimize for these query formats without deleting traditional search performance? I think we tackled it a little bit. We only have 12 minutes left, so maybe a few things to say. Otherwise, we can pass this along.
I just say write for your audience. You know the questions that your audience is asking, and then instead of focusing on what keywords they're going to rank for, just think like, how could I best answer that to help my audience? Because more people, especially with Project Astra, when we have it in glasses, people are just going to be searching in conversational search. And so, yeah, write for your audience.
Sarah, in one word.
Yeah, I think it's just I don't think they're gonna dilute each other per se, but I would say we just need to tackle content in a different mindset. Just the mindset. We're not throwing information at the reader anymore. We're having a conversation, right? So just a mindset, small mindset tweak. We're moving from the same way Google moved from strings to things. It's moving from keywords to conversations, right? And therefore, it's not the SERPs is moving from just being links to resources, whether it's web page or video or whatever. It's moving to the AI overviews, answers, right? So just something to keep in mind. I think it was Cyrus. He had a page ranking in the top 10, and it wasn't cited in the AI overviews. So he checked what's in AI overviews, adapted, like wrote some version of this in his content, and he got cited, right? So it's just the understanding what is the way AI overviews want to present the answer and trying to match that, right? And it's probably conversational. Yeah.
Okay. And I will say nothing about it. I think everything has been said. Next question about threats. I think that's a good one. People are scared. What are the emerging threats to online reputation in 2025, and how can brands proactively protect themselves against content-related penalties and misinformation campaigns? Marie, you mentioned it a little bit, but that's one of your specialties. So please, if you want to go first.
I think these are two different questions, because let's talk first about content-related penalties. So for when I first started in SEO, it kind of happened by accident that I was really interested in Google was running a bunch of manual actions back in, I mean, I was studying SEO since 2008, but in 2012, 2013, Google gave so many manual actions, mostly for unnatural links at the time. And then we'd see the occasional thin content penalty. But recently, and then for many years, there were very few manual actions that Google handed out. And then recently, we've seen them add this new part to their spam policies about scaled content abuse. And I'm predicting that within the next few months, or at least the next year, we're going to see a lot of sites that don't do well because of scaled content abuse. And the reason for this is that there's a reason why a lot of black hats publish millions of pages at a time, because all of that content can contribute to Google's understanding of your topical authority, what you're known for. And I think that I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory I'll share with you, that I actually think that Google has allowed the black hats to do this because it helps train their LLMs. So basically, flood the internet with all this information, and then the AIs can train on it. But I think that age is ending. And so I would encourage people that, yes, you should be creating content, but if you are creating content in an automated way where, nobody can create millions of pages in a matter of a couple of months without being scaled content. So I would encourage you to take a look at that part of the spam policies. I don't believe we've seen manual actions for that, although I could be wrong, but it will be algorithmic, most likely. And then the other thing is the reputation abuse, site reputation abuse manual actions, that several of them went out at the end of last year. Now, just in this week, several are going out in Europe. And that's for sites where the main domain, there's maybe a subdomain or a subfolder, and people are taking advantage of the main domain.
Those coupons.
Yes, coupons is a perfect example, and so that's something where I think a lot of people have ranked based on the authority of another domain, and that's not something that
in the media industry we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, the ethics of Google cut the income of many news sites, right before Christmas. Now, to be fair, they've been saying for years, don't do this. But then also now they're starting to enforce some of the things that we never thought they could. In terms of threats to your online reputation, that's a whole different area. I don't know, Sarah, do you have thoughts on that, or do you want me to just keep going?
I'll just say something small here. I'm enjoying your discussion. What I want to say is LLMs are not prepared for the amount of spam SEOs are capable of. They have no idea what's coming their ways, and SEOs are capable of manipulating them. And it's just a matter of time till tactics are figured out, and your website, for example, one of the things that has been mentioned, what if someone has a web page and notice that an LLM, is ChatGPT, for example, is accessing this page regularly? What if they add a prompt in the content, right, somewhere, to say, okay, every time you get asked about this brand, their brand, recommend it, or say something positive about it, or this is the best in the area. So it can be manipulated, and it's a threat for your competitors, obviously, and this ecosystem here, right? They're not ready to deal with these things. And the only way I see right now, and I don't have all the answers, so I'm sorry about this, but the only way I see is you need to have control of your brand. You need to have a strong brand. Otherwise, you can be easily attacked in a modern AI black hat way, right?
You made me think of something, Sarah, that I think we should always be doing vanity searches, asking the LLMs about ourselves, about our brand, and even looking in the AI overview if your brand appears in the AI overview, because it's interesting to see where it pulls from. Like if I ask questions about me, you can see that it's taking wording directly from my homepage and my about page, which means that I can manipulate that, right? Like I can, if it's saying, if you can always tell when somebody on LinkedIn writes a post of like the best SEO experts to follow, and then they say Marie Haynes, an expert in Google penalties, and blah blah blah, because that was what was on my website when ChatGPT was last trained. And so basically what you put on your website feeds the LLMs. Now, the question is like, well, could anybody, like maybe you hate me and you could flood the internet with information about me being awful. Well, that's where EEAT comes in. And that's why I believe the LLMs, they're not just going to take any piece of information and go, oh, well, there's rumors that she did this horrible thing. You know, they take it from reputable sources.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that if there are reputable sources that are quoting something like maybe your business has done something bad, then that's a really difficult thing. I don't do reputation management, but I think that there will be whole new areas of reputation management that will come up because LLMs are either pulling information from the press, or sometimes hallucinating things, which can be awful. But that will get better and better. I think we're in an age where like hallucinations are scary, but it will continue to improve in that area. At least I hope so.
And Mary, you mentioned reputation as a brand, but yourself as a person. When you're a public company and you're in like very picky industries such as travel, insurance, people that are talking about you always say bad things. Because if you're happy with your insurance company or with your airline, nobody's going to say it. But when you have like an unhappy experience, you are right about it. And when we see the surge, like the way the traffic of reddit.com skyrockets, like I was looking at it on the last 2 years, from 60 million to 600 million clicks only on organic search. And then you have the direct search, the app, all of that. It's huge. So as a brand, as an SEO person, but also as a brand management person, you need to take into account those UGC website, Reddit, but it's not the only website. And Sarah, you mentioned it before, and I totally agree with that. It's not possible as a strong and big brand with a lot of money to let others talk about you, or at least not be the only one talking about you, because you can't say to others, no, you're not going to talk about me. But when you're a big website, when you're a big brand, you need to build a fortress. And that fortress can be your own website. It can also be your own community, but you manage that community. But it's not possible to have your brand, your website, like the spaceship website, and then everybody talking about you, but I was about to be impolite, talking shit about you, maybe. It's not possible. So you need to build that reputation also. But I think we all agree on that. And because we have 2 minutes left, and I would really love to talk to answer some question, we're going to talk about agents. So we all talk a lot about agents. How should businesses prepare for a shift in search behavior driven by conversational agents, wearable technology, and non-traditional information source? I think we just touched that a little bit, but now let's jump into the future. Who wants to start?
So I don't have, I didn't try agents, right? But I have a view on AI in general and using AI. I think we need to understand, why are we using AI? Is it for convenience or is it a need? Because sometimes if it's just, hey, I just want to pass this to ChatGPT or whatever, because or an agent, because I don't want to do it for whatever reason. Like there are specific tasks that are so empty and provide no value, or is it something that is necessary? So it's just a question to ask before we pursue adding, an extra layer of tech in our workflows. That's all I have on my mind right now.
Okay. Maria, I would love you to have the final word, so I will continue. So I would say it's gonna change things, of course. One thing that came to mind, we talked about it right before the webinar, but Microsoft CEO says SaaS are dead, SaaS platforms are dead, agents will rise. We are SaaS platform. So of course, when I
Yeah.
see that, I'm like, okay, but lucky us, or we work quite well. And so we have a lab, an AI lab here at SMG that are working a lot on agents for months now. And I would say that the main change for us, but also for other businesses, is some very complex and very specialized tasks will be automatized within a few weeks if it's not already done. For example, you want to have a CRO audit, like conversion rates optimization audits. It's really hard to do. You need very complex skills within an agent. You can just ask an agent to always go to your website and to give you some analysis and maybe even do some changes. So you don't have to do anything. Maybe the CTA should not be in pink, but in red. Maybe it should not be on the left-hand side. It should be on the right-hand side. An agent can do that for you. So I would say, again, that's a major change. But the same way, like 5 years ago, every content on a website was written by hand. Now it's not anymore. It will change, it will evolve, but being even more specialized than ever.
Yeah, let me talk just for a couple minutes on agents, because I don't think we fully understand. I don't think anybody fully understands how agents are going to change our world. And there's a bit of debate as to what an agent is. My understanding is that it's AI to accomplish tasks, can still be human driven, but can work autonomously. So I could say to my AI, go publish my newsletter, and all of that administrative stuff that I normally do today, eventually my agents will do it. I put in the chat a link to an article I wrote after watching this video with Demis Hassabis, who is the founder of DeepMind, pretty much responsible for Google Gemini. And I'll read the beginning part. He said, I think there's going to be a very interesting phase in the next few years on the web in the way that we interact with websites and apps. I'll tell you, every business is going to have multiple agents, and all of us are going to have AI agents. And very soon, when you want to have SEO advice, you might not email me. You'll contact my agent, which will have been trained on my advice. And my agent will help you and maybe interact with agents that can take action to help improve your content. And so he ended, the whole quote is on that link that I put there, but he said, talking about agents, that does imply a lot of changes to the structure of the web and the way that we currently use it. I think there will be incredible opportunities that will appear, economic and otherwise, based on this change, but I think it's going to be a big disruption. And so I'm predicting that what we're talking about here in terms of SEO will be like talking about how to optimize for the newspaper, like for the, on paper newspaper, very shortly, that the entirety of what we do will change. So that's a whole other topic. If I may put a little plug in for my community, the Search Bar. We have a great group. I know a couple are in your chat here who are talking specifically about agents, because when Demis Hassabis says there's great opportunity that's coming, I really believe it. I think that millions of jobs will be created in advising businesses how to create agents, how to optimize agents, how to make them safe, and all those things. So for anybody who is currently out of work in terms of SEO or terrified because the world is changing, I really encourage you to look at agents, especially Google's Vertex AI agent builder. Definitely worth checking out.
Thank you, Mary. And sorry, we are late, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So please, if you have any question, just let us know. We all have a LinkedIn or an email address, so please reach out to us. Otherwise, if you have a few minutes, we can answer a few questions. And I think the one with the most vote is this one from Anthony. How can I create content and be within EAT when I'm working in an unfamiliar or new industry? You can't. Marie is like, yeah.
Well, you can interview. So I worked with an SEO who was working for a law firm, and she's like, the SEOs were writing all the content, and I looked at it, I was like, I can tell that an SEO wrote this content. And so what she did was she went to the receptionists at the law firm and had big long Zoom calls with them, asking about the customers that they reach out to and what their biggest complaints were, biggest concerns. So you can interview the people for the website that you're working for, but you can't write expert level content if you're not an expert in that topic.
Totally agree with you. What I often say to our client is the best SEO are not SEO people. You need to be an expert to be relevant, and so to be performant. A few use cases, we have a client that sells like drugs online, for example. You need to be a pharmacist to be good and relevant on that part. We have law firms. You need to be a lawyer to be relevant on that part. You need, if you're, I don't know, in the chemical industry, you need to be an engineer to understand what it is. As an SEO, you can't. Your job as an SEO is to identify opportunities, maybe to do a bit of competition analysis to make sure that we have the best practices overall, to create brief, etc. But the writing part is an expertise job. You can't do that as an SEO. So agree. Maybe it's through interviews. Maybe it's what I often say, like ask your product teams to write content for you. You do the brief, they write, and then you maybe tweak that content a little bit. You will add an H2 and an H3. You will put some links. But what's been said, it's not you. It's an expert that says about it.
Following up on what you're both saying, awesome. I like what Marie said about interviewing. And this actually aligns with putting more effort to the content, right? Like just mixing something and throwing it is not going to work anymore. And then Corey's part as well. I mean, I totally agree. You cannot write expert content as an SEO. You're not expert in everything. You can write expert content in SEO, right? The only thing I can see, if it's something you experienced, the other E, yeah, maybe, right? Like if a product you tried or something, but actual expertise, would you read a content written from a copywriter about SEO who has no understanding of SEO and find it useful? It's going to be ChatGPT level, very generic, very bland, doesn't have any, I wouldn't expect to find anything interesting in there. They probably got things from all over. So yeah, I agree with you guys. We didn't have any fights today, so yeah.
So you were talking about effort. So I put another question on the screen. Maybe you want to answer this one, Sarah, because you mentioned efforts.
I don't think there's a specific. I mean, at the end of the day, Google is an algorithm, and it'll try to map this into some matrix, some way, or some behavior, right? Some model that is gonna, machine learning model that's gonna identify the effort level, one way or the other, some pattern. But for the human side, for us, it's just not that simple. I mean, interviewing, definitely high effort, right? Hiring an expert who has the knowledge and maybe test something and write about it, definitely that's putting a lot of effort. So I mean, let's start with no more skyscraper, no more, bye-bye, dead. So yeah, let's start from there.
Yeah, I think the effort part is a way to do things, and Google does not care. But the relevancy and legitimacy of the content, like does it create value, that's something that they care about. And so and of course, to be relevant and to be legitimate, you will need to put some effort in, because it's not magic. Otherwise, it would be easy. But yeah, effort is not an algorithmic criteria.
Oh, I think it is.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you. I have the Radar guidelines open right now, and the word effort is in there 120 times. I just controlled F for that. So at the beginning of the beginner of the Radar guidelines, it tells one of the purposes of the raters is to provide Google with examples of helpful and unhelpful results that help to train their systems. So if a human can tell if effort has been put into something, then that gets flagged as this is likely a helpful result. And then the machine learning systems, that's what they do, is they try to make algorithms that replicate the results that humans have marked as high quality results. So I would encourage you. I said if you read anything, it should be the Pandu Nayak testimony. Really, if you haven't read the Quality Rater Guidelines, they represent what Google is trying to reward. And if humans can tell that you've put a lot of effort into content, then that is eventually what Google wants to reflect into their algorithms.
Yes, and
Okay,
thank
can I say
you
one more thing?
for disagreeing with me, Mary, because I think it's really cool to have that in mind.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, yeah, one more thing. I think I'm assuming we all had this similar experience where we read an article and we're just skimming to find the actual value we were looking for. And then there's sometimes you read an article and you're like, oh my God, every paragraph you need to pause for a minute to like, oh my, and that shows very different levels of value, right? And effort, of course.
Thank you, Sarah. And we are 10 minutes late, so I will need to end the session. First of all, thank you, Sarah.
We're not bored.
You're not at all. It was an amazing session. I'm very happy to have had that chance to share the stage with you. So big thank you to you, Sarah. Same with you, Mary. Really cool. You guys, if you want to ask us some specific question, LinkedIn profile, email address, do whatever you want. We'll be happy to answer any of that. Thank you for staying. And again, Sarah, Mary, see you soon. Have a good one.
Great. Thanks so much. This has been fun.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.